What's up, gamers? I'm your host, Cobra, and this is the Freeroll. Today, we're breaking down a huge upcoming update to the Legends of Venari. So last night, the Legends of Venari team released the patch notes for the upcoming update on November 17th. Then this morning, they held a nearly 2-hour AMA where the community was able to ask a bunch of questions and get clarification on everything in that article. I sat through the entire AMA, asked a bunch of questions myself, and now we're going to break it down together. Now, in case you're not familiar, Legends of Venari is essentially the Pokemon of Web 3, or at least that's what they're trying to build out. Today, it's a really fun collection catch-em game, and it's going to expand to be a whole lot more. It's definitely worth checking out, and starting next Thursday, in my opinion, it's going to be quite a bit more fun. I want to mention that here at the top because I know many of you aren't going to make it to the end where I have my final analysis, but if you want to skip to any section, I always include timestamps below to make that really easy for you. So there is a whole bunch here to go over, and I've attempted to keep things in the same or similar categories as the patch notes, which again linked below, and that should hopefully make things easy to follow along. I've also included some timestamps for each category so that you can jump to the section that you're most interested in. But the categories that we are going to break down today are the changes to Venari themselves, including some spawning mechanic changes, the changes to the bait system, major changes to the essence and shards system, as well as some gameplay changes, minigame changes, and location changes that are all part of this rebalancing. Finally, we'll wrap things up by covering their migration plan, and I'll give you my final thoughts on the update. Let's start with the changes to the Venari themselves, because this is probably the most controversial part about the update. Tiering is going away. Prior, we had tiers 1 through 4 that indicated different power and rarity levels for the Venari, and that is being removed. Venari will now only have their element class, and there are 8 different types. 4 of them are considered base elements. Those are water, fire, earth, and air. And 4 of them are considered hybrid elements. That's lightning, magma, ice, and nature. The hybrid ones are essentially combining 2 of the base elements together to form the hybrid, and that's going to have real gameplay impact in the future, but doesn't mean a whole lot today other than the hybrid variants are more rare. Then they're adding a new feature for Venari to keep things exciting. You're going to be able to find outfitted or skinned Venari. These are going to be very similar to the Halloween event Venari that we have seen. In fact, those Halloween event Venari are going to transition into outfitted Venari as well. To go along with the Venari changes, they've updated the spawning mechanics as well. All Venari are going to have a chance to spawn as a blessed Venari, and a blessed Venari is one that is going to drop shards upon capture. More on that later. Venari are also going to have a chance to spawn with an outfit. This is a new mechanic that's going to be quite exciting. This means that there is going to be 3 independent RNG rolls for every Venari that is spawned. The first one is going to be as simple as which Venari is being spawned. The second will be, is that Venari blessed? And the third will be, is that Venari wearing an outfit? Naturally, all of these changes require some updates to the bait system as well, and these changes are relatively straightforward. Now, Tier 1 baits are going to spawn only base or hybrid Venari. Expect a very small chance to spawn a hybrid on a Tier 1 bait, but it is possible, so that's cool. Tier 2 baits are going to give you a higher chance to spawn a hybrid Venari, as well as a small chance to spawn a blessed and or outfitted Venari. Then finally, the Tier 3 baits are going to spawn hybrid Venari at the highest rate and give you the best chance to spawn a blessed or outfitted Venari. And to be clear, it is possible to spawn all 3, a hybrid, outfitted, blessed Venari. The next section here is a major overhaul for the essences and shards system within Legends of Venari, and While this is a very big change, it's likely not going to be felt very much by a whole lot of the players. The reason for that is that essences and shards are primarily used for leveling up your Venari, and while you can absolutely level up your Venari today, there's really no benefit to doing so other than getting ready for future updates, because we don't do anything with the Venari at this particular moment. When the grid feature finally drops in a few months, the level of your Venari is actually going to matter. So this is essentially preparing the game for that update by making the system a bit more player friendly. Leveling up your Venari will cost less essence than it used to, and it will no longer require any shards at all. When you release a Venari, you're going to get Venari specific essence, and that includes any Venari. The Venari that are released, however, will no longer provide you with any shards at all. Instead, the shards are moving to this new blessed system, which, as we discussed earlier, is a separate RNG roll when your Venari is spawned, and any Venari that is spawned as a blessed one is going to drop shards upon capture. Next, let's jump into the gameplay changes. The time that an expedition takes, or the total amount of time that you have to wait for Venari to spawn on a particular bait, is being completely reworked. All baits are being changed to a 15-minute timer. This is independent of whether they're tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 baits. Instead, the location that you place the bait is going to add on additional time based on the location. And naturally, the gold that is dropped with the Venari capture is going to be adjusted to reflect the changes in time waited and the new amount of energy used. However, it's important to note that the overall change to the gold economy in-game, when you consider all of these updates, is that we should be earning more gold per capture and per time played. The minigame that you play when you're catching a Venari is also being updated. After November 17th, any base Venari that you spawn is going to require 3 actions to capture. So that's the same as a tier 1 Venari currently. Any hybrid Venari that you spawn or any outfitted Venari that you spawn is going to require 5 actions. That's similar to a tier 2 spawn today. Finally, if you're lucky enough to spawn a outfitted hybrid Venari, then you're going to have to do all 9 actions, which is the same as a tier 3 Venari currently. And last but not least, the energy requirements for locations is also being updated. The 2 energy locations will remain the same. 10 energy locations are going to cost 8 energy moving forward, and the 25 energy locations are going to cost 15 energy moving forward. Much more player friendly in my opinion. To go along with all of this balancing and changing, there is of course a migration plan in place. That plan includes that all current existing essence is going to be converted into universal essence. They are also going to refund you the difference in the amount of essence, because the amount of essence required to level up is being reduced. So that difference is going to be refunded to you in the form of universal essences. They are also going to provide a limited window to convert essence into shards, albeit at a 70% rate. I'll note that during the AMA that was generally discouraged in terms of min-maxing, but we'll discuss that option in a future video. Finally, the current tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4 Venari are going to be retired as legacy outfitted Venari, and that outfit is going to be bound to the Venari for good. I will note that this is one of the things that some players are upset about, and the team has definitely received some feedback, so we may see a tweak to that feature. Keep an eye out for an update to the patch notes. Whew! That is a whole lot to take in, and if your head is spinning, I don't blame you. Mine certainly was after I ran through the patch notes the first time myself. However, I've had about 24 hours now to digest this information and think about how it's going to impact the state of the game, and I'm happy to report that, in my opinion, these are excellent and needed changes to the game. Now, Legends of Venari was far from a broken game, so why do we need such dramatic changes? It's because the game did suffer from a rather large learning curve that creates a pretty big gap between a more casual player and somebody who's a serious grinder. And I'll break down what that means. The Tier 2 and Tier 3 Venari only spawn on the higher end baits, and those are rather expensive in terms of their gold cost. So if you're not playing regularly and earning a bunch of gold income in-game, then you're going to run out of money to purchase those baits that you need rather quickly. This is even more true because you earn no gold when you don't get a capture, and the Tier 2 Venari are relatively difficult to catch on their first try. It usually takes 2 or 3 attempts before you can figure out the right ratio and combination of actions. And a Tier 3 Venari is next to impossible to catch on the first 2 tries even, because unless you get lucky, figuring out all 9 actions is really difficult. So on top of that, the Tier 2 and Tier 3 Venari only spawn in certain places. Those places move around. They're only available at certain times, and they all have a bait type preference that impacts your odds of actually spawning them. So when you add all of these things together, plus the fact that the Tier 3 baits take 12 hours to run through their expedition, and the final stages in each world are all 25 energy, or 25% of your total energy cap, it means that you're not getting very many chances to try and catch these Venari, even if you are lucky enough to be finding them. That means that most players are not going to have very many or any of those more powerful and interesting Venaris, which is going to create all sorts of balanced problems in the future and really just doesn't make for a very fun game. Players want to be able to capture those cool and more rare, powerful Venari. This update is going to make that a much more frequent event. Allow me to use my own experience as a player to highlight the issue. As you might expect, I play Legends of Venari as much as possible. That is most days during the current season, which has been the last several months. During that time, I have captured 5 Tier 2 Venari and 0 Tier 3 Venari. Now, to be clear, I am not including the event-specific Venari because they have slightly different spawning mechanics and don't really suffer from this problem. There's a whole bunch of you out there with less knowledge than I do about how this game works and less time to play the game, but still would enjoy playing it. And because of the current system, those players are relying almost entirely on a very small percentage chance to spawn a cool and rare, powerful Venari, and that just really isn't a whole lot of fun. Of course, we won't be able to truly judge this update until we get hands-on and spend a little time experiencing the new mechanics. However, I've thought about this a whole bunch, and I am very confident that it is going to be a real improvement for all players, and especially solo players who aren't sharing a lot of information with other players on how to find Venari, as well as casual players that simply don't have a lot of time and gold to spend on the expensive baits to give themselves a reasonable chance to find those hybrid Venari. It means that those Venari are going to be a bit more common and likely will have less value on the secondary market in the future, but that is a small price to pay in order to really increase the enjoyment level of playing the game and making it much more accessible for a lot of players. I also expect that as they do additional partnership events and have more players trying the game out, that a lot more of those players are going to stick around because it is going to remain as exciting as it did during the event, because you're going to start seeing a lot more of the interesting and rare Venari. This is a lot to take in, and I want to hear your thoughts and questions. So hit me up on Twitter, post a question in the comment section below, or find me in the Legend of Venari Discord. My Discord name there is the Freeroll/The Kingdom, and I would love to answer your questions and hear what you think about the game. If I can explain anything for you, I certainly will. You can also always go ask your questions inside of the Venari Discord. The community is very friendly and will provide a lot of answers. The mods are generally always available, as well as the core team members, so you'll get accurate information there as well. And that wraps up today's edition of the Freeroll. I hope you found this fun and informative, and if you did, consider giving me a follow on Twitter. That's where I love to engage with the Web3 gaming community and answer all of your questions. Also, double check that you have hit that subscribe button below. I'm going to be covering Legends of Venari all the time, and you don't want to miss any of those videos.